Hey everyone, recently got asked to update a video on Google Sites. And so I was taking the opportunity as I'm getting ready to create a new website for my channel, The Unpublished Thought. I figured I would walk through some of the big basic steps in creating this. Now, this is a longer video, so please be sure to check out the description where I have bookmarks to each of the sections of the video. I plan on taking you through the overall creation of a site, the creation of the pages and the structure, being able to rearrange pages using menu headings, etc. Go through some of the theming of your site, using content blocks, inserting text, inserting links to things like YouTube videos or articles from a Google Drive, talking about how to link those both as embeds and also as a hyperlink or just a text insertion. We will also cover publishing your site, as well as the permissions that are necessary for the things that you embed into your site. And hopefully that will really give you an overview of creating what I think is one of the most valuable tools in a teacher's toolkit, and that is the ability to create personalized websites for a lot of different things and then connect students and parents and other teachers together with you and your resources through something as simple as a Google site. So hopefully you enjoy this video. Once again, please make sure to look down in the description in order to see the bookmarks to the different sections, and I'd really appreciate any liking and subscribing you might be prompted to do. So I'm on sites.google.com, and I'm going to create a blank site here. Now, it's important, just like with some of the other tools in Google, to recognize that the untitled site name up here, this is what the document that shows up in my Google Drive, like how I would find it. So I am actually going to call this Unpublished Thought version 1.0. That's not the name that people would see when they go there. You can change that here as you are looking at the site name. So I'm going to call this Unpublished Thought. That's also not the name of the page that you're on, but probably the backbone. What most people are thinking about when they go to sites are, what are the pages going to be? So I'm just going to add some pages that I think I will use as I'm going through here. So I am just going to say, add a page for videos. I'll probably add an About Me page. Maybe I will do I think I spelled that right, a CV kind of page. Maybe that's kind of like the About Me page. So right now I'll just call it CV. Perhaps I will have some blog posts, who knows. So I'm going to add those things over here just so that you can see that it starts to create this menu on the top part of this. Now, what's nice about the Google Sites is any of these pages can be rearranged. They can be hidden when you're working on them, that they're not ready to be published yet. So as an example, I'm going to hide the CV page from navigation. Maybe it's a page that I want to have available, but I'll link it directly to someone. I won't want them finding it when they're on the page, whatever that happens to be. So it essentially hides the fact that that page exists from the navigation. The other thing you can do is you can move some of these things in so that they become sub pages. So I could do, like under this home page, I could have About Me and blog posts, and then maybe I would have something over here that is like tutorials, and perhaps videos would come underneath that. However you want to rearrange that. So a lot of times though, what happens when you're working with this is you end up with, the home page, the About Me page, the blog post page, but a lot of times because of the way this is done, people don't realize that you can click directly on the home page. What I might do is say that there's a difference between adding the page as like tutorials. Doesn't look like I can do it with the home page, but I'm going to add a menu section called tutorials. Now the difference between that, tutorials is an actual page. This is just a menu section. So now if I put videos under here, you'll notice I can remove this tutorials page. And this page you can't click on. This is just a menu section that takes you down to videos. So I could do the some of those things the same with these other things. Like if I want information. Now, like I said, you can't change the home page. So maybe I would want a new, not a new page, excuse me, a new menu section called About Me. Now, the difference when I'm doing that, let me pull it out here so that it's its own thing. I could have the About Me page underneath it, and perhaps I would rename it just so that it's different. Like here's, Joshua Johnson, right? So now I have an About Me page that you can't click on, but underneath that, I've got it. So that's the difference between using some of these menu headings versus an actual page like the home one. A lot of times people will not realize that the home page is something you can click on when it has this dropout. So I might put this somewhere else, and always recommend that if you're going to have this home page, leave it all alone, no menu underneath it. But that's really up to you. Once you have and start figuring out these pages things, a couple other advanced tips under here is you can, underneath the properties, you can change the custom path. Now this will become more important if you want to have a link that goes directly to something. That also a lot of times requires using a domain name, like if you actually register a domain name for things. So as an example, if I go to wlcidc.com, this is one that I have purchased, that domain name that goes here, and I have some paths on here like I believe Canvas will take me to the Canvas page, etc. That right there is what is talked about when I'm saying the custom path. Like, what do you want the actual typed out? Instead of writing out blog post, maybe it's just blog, right? And that path would take you to the page blog post. Makes it a little bit easier if you're typing things and putting them together. So probably one of the first things that I would recommend is trying to think through, like, what is this going to look like? The themes is just the overarching kind of theme for the entire thing. You can have just a few options. You can customize some of these things like the borders and backgrounds, etc., the color settings. I'm going to use simple for right now. Might change it a little bit later, but let's go with simple and heavy just as the theme. So on pages, I'm going to go to the home page, and I am going to say welcome to the unpublished thought. Now that's a lot of space that's on here. When you're on any page, you can change the header type. I can do just the title. I can do this banner that is the whole thing, or a large banner. You can also make this like a cover page if you wanted it to cover, like this is all that it is here's a welcome page, landing, etc. So when you're doing that, you can also change the size of the font if you want to. Right now it's in this 64. So I might say like, oh, I don't want the header type to be, so big. So I'll change the size a little bit, etc. You'll notice, drag this if I want to, change how it's viewed. I can also change the image that's behind here. I don't think I have any images uploaded, so I could just select a different image. I could use Google Drive, Google Photos, Google Images, or just a URL of an image. So let's go with what looks like something for right now. Unpublished thought. I like this one. So you can change the images. You can also add a logo if you have one. So I'm going to upload a logo here. Has just black for right now. There we go. So you can have that little logo. You can also do I could have used the same thing and not used any words on this and just change the entire header. So that's one option. The other thing that is important when you're working on this, if you notice when I click on the settings icon in the top left, I could use and change a lot of different things about the brand images. FavIcon, that's usually the little icon that shows up in the top corner. So I'll probably make this a FavIcon. It's a smaller little logo that goes on there. Probably the biggest thing, the navigation, I can have it on the top or I can have it on the side. So you'll notice over here, I could use a sidebar navigation, or if I change that, I can use the top navigation. All right. And I was mentioning domains before. Here's where you could connect a domain. Once I get my site created and, purchase that domain, I could connect a domain to this. If you go through Google, it will, I think they use Squarespace now for their domain register. I usually use something like Pork Bun as my domain registration. All right. So now that you have an idea about how the overall structure works, let's take a look at inserting things onto the page. So typically, let's go to the About Me page. Now, Google, when you are working on editing the pages, they have really tried to prevent you from being able to make a website look bad, if you will. So you're always going to find that you don't maybe have as many options as you want. So I'm just going to give some examples here. Right away, they have content blocks, and you can use those to kind of jumpstart your template creating. So as an example, if I use a content block like this, you're going to notice it adds this section where this is the content. What's nice about that is if I have multiple sections of content, I can actually go back and forth and kind of rearrange these into whatever order I want. Now, a lot of people will start there, but you might find in some cases that you want to have a little bit more control. A great example of this is I have often used this idea, but I wanted to have more, like I wanted to have a list of logos. I can't think of a site that I have them on right now, but a lot of times I'll do like, here's the apps that I use when I'm working through things. So you can always change it. So I'm going to take this and you'll notice I'm going to drag one of these entire things up here and change basically the size of these logos, automatically. I can also decide like, oh, I don't really want to have any text underneath any of these logos. So I am going to not delete the whole logo, just delete this text box. You'll notice clicked on it to remove that. So depending on what you want to do, a lot of times you can start with some of these pre-built things. Control Z is my undo. I'm having trouble deleting the text on there. So you can do that. You can always come back later and add different things as well. You can delete entire sections on the left-hand side. And the other thing you can do to make things stand out is you can actually change the section colors. Like, so here's an About Me page, and maybe I want this to stand out a little bit. Perhaps I want this one to stand out a little bit more. So I can put this kind of background color behind it. You can also use images if you wanted to. Again, you can upload some, or you could pick images from Google Drive to kind of give the content some background. I personally, a lot of times will use the 3 built in without the images. I'll use these 3 just to kind of help separate a longer web page into sections. So that's just some of the content blocks. You can also just insert a text box, right? The text box is just becoming its own section. I can put it wherever I want. And 1 second, I'm going to get a lorem ipsum generator going here. So I'm going to pause this. All right, went over to just a lorem ipsum generator to make some dummy text that I can use to kind of rearrange things. You're gonna notice I just pasted the text into this text box. Has all of the same features that I had before. I can duplicate the section. I can delete it. I can change the colors of it. But once I have this, you'll notice like, well, maybe this is a little bit too much like I'm writing a paper. So I am going to actually duplicate this section just to kind of show you how I could, instead of doing it that way, I could take these things and arrange them into, 3 kind of text blocks going across the page here. So what I am doing right now is really just kind of editing. I thought there was a way, there it is. I thought there was a way to change the width. So I could do this into 2 text boxes. Man, let me find, this one's way too skinny, so the thing's way down here. Whoops, having trouble with the mouse. There we go. It's probably overestimated 500 words. I didn't quite need that much. But I could do it like that and say like, oh, I'm going to do 3 paragraphs. So let's cut this one down. Let's cut this one down. This is why a lot of times this would have been a whole lot easier if I had started with the content blocks, right? And said like, oh, here is, let's insert the 3 content blocks and say like, oh, what I really don't want is, whoops, I don't want the image. And maybe I don't even want the heading on each of these. So I'm just trying to click it to delete the heading. The reason this is nice is because now they are already made to the right size. So when I paste in way too many words, I've got 1 column, another column, and a 3rd column. I don't think there is a built-in way, if I am going to insert text like that, I don't think there's a built-in way to make this into 3 columns like you normally would with a word processor. I also do not think there's a way to make it automatically flow from this column to the next column. Now, as you saw when you're going through here, I could take text boxes as an example and say like, oh, but I want this text box to actually be that title. So notice when I'm dragging it down, I can put it on top of here. I can use things like the title or the heading and say like, growing up. And then I could, if I wanted to, I could duplicate that, make it easier, and put it over here. And then I'll duplicate it again and put it on top of this one. So you can see how you can arrange some of the text into columns or into paragraph formats with that insert. So here's that text box. And again, I can move the entire section wherever I want. I can also just move one of these things around. They all have the same title. So I could move one down in here. It tries to automatically, fit some of the things. It's not going to look nice because now it's all messed up. So I'll Control Z and undo that. Couple other really nice features. Let me get rid of some of this extra on here, just deleting them, is this collapsible group. Right. So if you wanted to use something like the collapsible group, that gives you an option to say like, here is a bunch of stuff. And then you could put whatever it is that you're putting in this collapsible group. So in this sense, I suppose if I wanted to edit some of the things that were in here, let's see if I can take an image. Let's go, here's an image. Wonder if I can put that in the collapsible group. There we go. So now I have the image in there. You'll notice I can open it and close it, for the collapsible group. It's nice if you want to have, things. A lot of times it's text like, hey, how do I do this? Again, I can probably find some examples of where I have used that. Another interesting example is the image carousel. You could put images in this carousel. Again, I'm just going to go to Google Images and let's look for puppies. I'm going to add those 4 images to the carousel. So all this is if I'm going to look at this, right? Like here is a preview of this site the way that it is now. I can go down here and you'll just have this little image carousel with each of the images going on. A lot of times what I like to use this for is YouTube videos, and I can insert YouTube videos from right here as long as it is something that is mine. So I am going to be doing a lot of this, and I'm just going to grab 3 of these for right now and hit the insert button. Now I tend to, again, use the idea of resizing this, figuring out like, oh, how could I divide this into thirds to make this a little bit nicer, looking more correct. A lot of times that's where I end up using those placeholders for the content, things like this, and saying like, oh, this is going to be the video that goes in there. Now, I believe if I'm actually thinking through this again, I usually have done this in groups of 2. So let's grab this guy and pull him out there. And the reason I usually use 2 is I think it does a better job of kind of maintaining the aspect ratio for my Google videos when I'm doing that. So I could go over here and take a look at the Canvas tutorials. Maybe I did it, in this case I did it in 4s. So here's just a bunch of videos that were put on there directly from YouTube. So that ends up helping you kind of organize some of that type of content, etc. Couple other things that I watch people use and do with this a lot, and I'm going to go to a different page for it. Like let's go to blog posts. I usually see people on the insert, they want to add stuff from their Google Drive, like files or PDFs or PowerPoints. I really think PowerPoints are really cool to add from a Google Drive. So let me go and just say, let's see if I can filter this by presentations. Let's see, here's one that I had created at one point. So I'm going to insert that presentation. It's really nice to have the presentation here because when you're previewing that site, you can kind of go and flip through the presentation right on there. So you can kind of get an idea. Maybe I'm going to have a video that's embedded on the left with a presentation that a user can flip through on the right hand side. So that's kind of nice. That's probably one of the few ones that I really like adding as an actual embed. And what I mean by that is if I add something else from Google Drive, and let's do something that is a text document. Let's see if I've got just a sample untitled. Here's a scratch document. So I'll insert that. I don't really like the idea of being here. Let's get rid of this one. So let's see if we have some content that is just a text document. All right, so here is a text document. When that's embedded, it is kind of nice if you wanted this to work like this. If I preview it, it just shows up right on the page, and it's got kind of this scroll inside of it that I can scroll through the things. But quite often, most of the time, I usually recommend, links like that are actually going to be inserted better by just doing something like this text box and actually adding whatever the link is. So let's say that this is a Google document. And I am going to highlight it and hit the link. And this is normally where I would put that, whatever the Google document share link is. Now it's a little bit different than the other one, but it allows you to kind of use that idea of like, here's a hyperlink to that item so that I can just click on it and go there. So I really like that in most cases. You'll probably see if I go onto this home page, some of these ideas. Let's see, like right here, I've got different links that are just resource guides. Rather than having all those embedded, you can click on each one of these, and maybe it takes you to a YouTube video, it might take you to a website, or it takes you to a PDF that's hosted in my Google Drive. The really important thing to remember when you're working with a site and you're trying to embed documents like this, though, is that you have to make sure that the document that you are hosting, whether it's in something like Dropbox or Google Drive, etc., that you have it shared so that anyone with the link can view it, unless it is something that you want them to specifically have to sign into a Google account that you have specifically shared that thing with. And you probably need some instructions on that, but that's probably the most common mistake I see when people share websites with me. They figure the website is published, you can see the website, you can see everything on it. There's still layers of permissions, so you have to make sure that the documents themselves are shared in there. So what I tend to recommend when working with something like that is that in your Google Drive, you create a new folder and call this your website, whatever it is. I'll call this one unpublished thought files. And then make sure that you share this so that anyone with the link can view it, right? Then anything you put into that folder is automatically shared that way. It retains the folder's settings, so you can put things in that folder and then use that to drop things onto your website. And that alleviates a lot of those problems with the sharing. So once you have content, etc., and you're ready to go and you've got your pages lined up the way that you want, one of the last steps is really to take a look at this publish button. Now, when I publish this, the default address is going to be this sites.google.com, site view, whatever this name is here. So I am going to leave it like that, except I'm going to take out the dash, unpublished thought. Anyone can view my site. I could manage that if I only want specific people. But normally a website is for the public, so anyone can view my site. There's a lot of sites. A lot of times these are portfolios that students are working on, etc. You can request that public search engines don't display your site. So you couldn't search for unpublished thought and find it. That doesn't mean that someone couldn't get there. It just means that, Google's search engine isn't going to try and catalog that. So here also you'll see some existing domain things. You can always come back and add this later. Like I said, I will purchase the domain and connect it to here. But for right now, I am just going to hit the publish button. And now I have a published site. This link is the copy to that published site link. So a lot of people will use that, and maybe even something like bit.ly, or shorten the URL to put in their email signatures, etc. When I come back over to settings, I've got a lot of those different things I showed before, and I can always come back to the publish site and kind of publish things. So what's important to know, though, after you publish it, if I actually create anything, like let's say in here I decide I am going to add a new text box, and there's some content. That is not going to show up on the published site. It's not been published. So even though the site is public, none of these recent changes are going to show up. So now I have to go up to publish, and it's going to show you what the draft is. Like, here is what I changed. This is what it used to look like. And if I'm ready for it, I can say, yep, sorry, wrong button. I can say, yep, I'm going to publish that. So that's just some of the basics. I know it's a little bit of a longer video on kind of navigating it. There are some more advanced things that I think are really interesting, especially if you utilize some HTML code and maybe do some coding with AI to help you generate web pages. And I will show some of that in a future video. But I believe this gets you started and understands the navigation, inserting different types of documents, and some of the ways that you can make the web page your own. Very simple to do, very flexible. One of my favorite Google applications, especially in education.